So we're at an interesting place in our family right now, especially with my boys. So both of my boys have loved playing basketball their whole lives. I've told stories about that. You've probably heard them before. And we've enjoyed it when they were little. It was super fun, had lots of fun, got to coach them. But now we're at this stage where the ball isn't just fun. It's starting to become serious because there's starting to be more at stake, right? So now it's not just about going out and playing with your buddies and seeing who can win the game. Now it's about presenting yourself in such a way that you're going to have more opportunities beyond just this game. Now it's about university. It's about opportunities beyond university. There's a lot at stake. So the way that we've begun to talk about basketball has really changed as well. It used to be hey, let's go play. We'd go play, have fun, that's it. Now we're starting to make plans. We're starting to put together goals. We're starting to write up workout routines. We're starting to think about how we can be better prepared for the moment. And here's what we're discovering is that when there's more at stake, the more you start to put into the preparation, the more you begin to put the plans in place. And it's no different with our phones as well. When we begin to realize that there's a lot at stake with our phones, our phones can be really powerful both in our lives and in other people's lives. Our phones can be powerful for good. They can make a positive difference for us in terms of the way we get to relate to others, the types of experiences we can have, the way we can share experiences, and they can be really powerful in other people's lives as well. Our opportunity to love other people through their phones, through our phones, is very real. And when we begin to realize there's much at stake, it makes me think that we should probably start being really serious about how we plan, how we goal set. Because here's the deal. If you don't make a plan to control your phone, the truth of the matter is your phone will eventually control you. Okay, so in Proverbs, which is this book in the Bible, which is all about how to live wisely, the author of Proverbs begins to talk about how we should literally make plans. And in Proverbs chapter 3, verse 5 and 6, he says this, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart and do not lean on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make your paths straight." Okay, there's a few things that stand out to me. Number one, a good plan is coming to a place where we have to trust that God is really good, right? So he says, trust in the Lord with all your heart. Don't lean on your own understanding. And it's this idea that says, hey, God, I'm going to entrust all of myself to you. I'm going to trust that your way is a good way for me, that you actually are for me, you're not against me, and you know what's best. So I'm going to trust you with my heart, with all of my being. The second part is that we actually trust that God's way is just wise. We hear so many messages again in our culture in terms of how we should use our devices and interact with them. But I want to just say, and you guys are smart, you get this already, but we should be really cautious about what the makers of apps or devices tell us about how we should use them, because oftentimes it's more about what they can get from us than what they can actually give to us. And again, we know that, so we should be wise about that. When it comes to God, it's not what he can get from us. He doesn't need anything from us. It's because he wants something good for us. And again, because he knows us better than we know ourselves, we can trust that his way is a good and a wise way. So when we make plans, part of what we do is go, okay, God, what is your plan? I want my plan to be your plan. So we trust that God's way is good. We trust that God's way is wise. And then we trust that God's way is powerful. I mean, listen to what he says here. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make your paths straight. Okay, I think this is amazing. Because even when I make plans, I'm never 100% sure that I'm going to get the plan right. What if the plan doesn't work? But here's what's beautiful about God. That when we have a heart that lines up with him, when we say to him, God, I really trust that you're good, you're wise, I want to do it your way. Even when we get it wrong, the scriptures are so clear that he can work all things out for good. Isn't that amazing? There's not a plan we make that in some way God can't bring good out of it when we surrender it over to him. And so it's the same with our phones. When it comes to our phones, we go specifically, hey, there's a lot at stake here. We know these phones are powerful. We know they can be used for good. We know that they can be used for hurt and for harm. Okay, God, we want to make a good plan with the phone, and we want to line up with you. So we want to trust that you're good. Okay, God, as we make this plan, we want to do what you would have us to do because we know you're good. We trust that you're wise. You know us better than we know ourselves. You're for us, not against us. We trust that you're powerful. So even if we make the plan to the best of our ability, and let's say it doesn't quite go the way we think, we know that there's nothing that he can't bring good out of and can't reset. And so we don't have to be afraid. We do the best we can, we lean into it, and we trust that he's going to work with it.
Totally. So we're going to make some plans, and there's 4 parts to this. There's assessing, setting a plan, then support, and lastly, celebration.
Yeah, I love it.
First one, assessing. Have you ever been in that situation where your teacher like asks you to write on the whiteboard? So you go up to the board and you have the pen, you know, and you're writing out your story of like your 3rd grade crush and how it was so dramatic. Anyways, and then you step back from the whiteboard and you realize like all your writing has been like going at an angle the whole time, and it's like slowly getting worse and worse, and it's not straight at all. And so that's where it's important to assess. We take a moment, we stop, we pause, lean back, take a look. Where are we actually going? Like, is this working? Is it going right? Or do we need to make some corrections? So that's exactly it. We're gonna assess our phone use. So that can be how much time do you spend on your phone? We know lots of phones do this already. You can look up like your screen time, or I think it's called your digital well-being. It'll tell you how much time are you spending on your phone. So when do you spend time on your phone? Why do you spend that time on your phone? It's really great to think about, like, are you going to your phone because you're tired or because you feel lonely? Are you upset about something? Are you bored? Are you looking like to escape and have a distraction? We want to think really intentionally about why we're using our phone in those times.
Yeah, so good. And not only, Kara, are we thinking about like just the use of our phone, but then we start getting even more specific and think about what are the specific apps that we're using, right? So it's not just the phone, it's actually even the elements of the phone that we're getting into.
Totally. So then we can start to ask questions like, what are the top 3 apps that we're using? What do you use them for? How much time do you think you spend on each of those apps every day? Even what would be the hardest to take a break from and which would be the easiest to take a break from? Why do you think those might be? So those are all questions I want you to start thinking about.
Yeah, that's awesome. So once we kind of are able to kind of assess what's actually taking place in our journey with our phone, now we can begin to go, okay, this is where I am. Now, where do I want to get to be? And we start to set some goals for how we would actually like to function with our devices or the apps on our devices. There's a few things that I'm thinking about when I'm thinking about setting good goals with my devices. The first thing I'm thinking about is something like, how much time per day would I actually like to spend on my phone? I don't know about you guys, but I find that when I take a look at how much time usage I'm doing on my phone, I'm always shocked by how much it is. It's always so surprising when I realize, wow, I'm literally spending hours and hours here. And so part of what I want to do is just take a step back and go, okay, if I think about this much hours that I have in my day to use, think about how much time I have in school, how much time I should be spending sleeping. You know, you should think about that. And then how much spare time I have. I go, well, how much time of that would I like to actually be on my device? And one of the ways you might think about that is you might actually make a list and say, hey, these are all the things I really value. Okay, what different ways could I put time into those things that I value? And in what ways would my phone actually contribute to that? The second thing I want to think about is what times in the day would I like to stay away from my phone? I think this is an important thought. I think if we don't plan to create space from our phone, chances are we won't. So I'm often thinking about a few specific moments that can be really helpful for us. I think when I get home, when my boys just get home from school, I'm like, hey, that's actually a good moment to take a break from what's been going on at school and reset ourselves for a time at home. So why don't we take a pause there? Maybe take like 30 minutes, 45, put the phone away, go for a walk, just kind of get my brain reset for the evening. Another great time is around the table. I think it's wonderful to say, hey, we're going to leave this space free to actually interact and talk with other people right there at that table. So in our home, it's like tables, mealtime, that's like a no-go for the phone. So we remove those, take a break from there. The other 2 times I think are great to think about taking a break from your phone would be right before you go to bed. So creating 45 minutes to an hour to not be on the screen before you go to bed, the research tells us can really benefit your sleep in significant ways. And then when you first get up, what's the first thing you do when you get up from sleeping? And I think, again, in order to like get yourself ready for the day in a healthy manner, maybe taking some time thinking like things you're grateful for or thankful for, to do that work before you get to your phone and get immersed into that other world. So, you know, when I'm thinking about goal setting, I'm not just thinking about how much time I'm doing something, but how much time I'm actually not doing something on my screens. And then I'm thinking about my apps. Like what might be an app that I might actually want to take a significant amount of time away from. You know, if I'm assessing the apps that are most helpful or the apps that are least helpful for my life, I might say, hey, I'm just going to take a pause from this app altogether. In fact, one of the things that I'm advocating for right now is that we actually take pauses from not just apps, but from devices. Here's a challenge for you. What would it look like to go 24 hours without actually touching your device? Maybe ask yourself the question this: when was the last time you went 24 hours without touching your device? And I got to tell you, Kara, I can't actually remember that time.
Yeah, it sounds kind of stressful to have to leave it somewhere and not have it.
I know, I'm getting a little anxiety. So when I'm thinking about goals, I think it's really great to set some of these goals to create space for you. But it's not just, again, time away. I also want to think about what are goals for good things I want to do. What's one thing that you could do with your phone over the next week that would help you love God more? What's one thing that you could do with your phone over the next week that would help you love others more? And it's really important for us to set these goals so we can become really intentional with how we're using our phone.
Great. So the third phase of this is something called support. So I know I've gone through seasons in my life where I just thought I don't really need people around me and I'm okay on my own, and that just could not be further from the truth. We need community. We're built for community. We need other people to do life with us, and we need to do life with other people. It's a two-way street. And so in terms of our plan, then we can start to think of who's going to support me in this and who can I support, both sides of that. And it can be kind of scary to think, if I have to ask someone to help hold me accountable or walk with me in this, I start to think, are they going to judge me?
Right.
And it's no, they're not going to just judge you. They're actually just going to remind you of the goal that you set. They're going to pray with you, check in, and they're people that can help build community and walk with you through that. And so this could be a lot of different people. It could be people in your small group. It could be your leader. It could be specific mentors or different people you have in your world. But I encourage you to find someone that both you can support, but that they can support you.
Yeah, and then the final phase is what we would call follow-up and celebration. So, let's take, for instance, you take this next week. You do some assessments together as a group tonight. You set out some goals that you want to shoot for over the next week. You commit to each other to support each other. And then next week when you get back together again, you follow up and you celebrate. Now, for some of you, you're going to be thinking, how can I celebrate? Because the chances of actually accomplishing a goal seems really small. It's not a small thing to create a new relationship with your phone. You've tried to break up with your old relationship, reset in a new relationship with your phone. This isn't easy. Hey, we are not celebrating success. We're celebrating faithfulness. We're celebrating starting. We're celebrating trying again. And this is exactly what we want to shoot for. So when we do follow up and we have celebration, we ask questions like, which goals did you have the most success with? Which ones were the most difficult? Which is a goal that you're going to pursue again next time? Which is a goal that you might not try again? And we start thinking about okay, what was that like? How do we change? How do we respond? How do we start again? But mostly, don't forget, you gotta celebrate the good moments and even just the small moments. Just starting is something worth celebrating, and starting again is something worth celebrating even more. So when we're thinking about our 4 phases of developing a really good plan, we think about number 1, assessment. We think about number 2, goal setting. We think about number 3, getting great support. And then we think about number 4, follow-up and celebration.
This is about more than just a moment. We're not talking about a quick little switch or flip that we can make. It's a new way of living, and that's countercultural. It's opposite of what everyone is telling us and the way that we're supposed to interact with our phones. And so this is going to take some time. It's a process. You might make a mistake. You might not be as far along in this as you would like to be, but we want to celebrate the little steps and make little changes to live this out in our life. But can you imagine just what it would feel like if our phones didn't control us and our relationships and our time and our emotions? How free we would feel if we weren't controlled by our devices. Because God wants us to experience that freedom, and He has made a way for that to happen, and He wants us to join with Him in that plan of living that out. Because here's the reality, and this is what I know, and I've experienced it, and I think you have too. If we don't make a plan for how we're going to control our phones will control us.